Bienvenidex to
MERENDIANDO! The first one of season 4. Can you believe it?
Oh, it's so good to be back.
It really is. And what a better way to start season 4 than with Bilal Baig.
Bilal Baig is a queer trans feminine Muslim facilitator and published playwright.
Their play Acha Bacha has just been published with Playwrights Canada Press. What an achievement and what a beautiful story to share.
In this interview, we talk about the power of speaking Urdu on stage without compromise, religion, queerness, and trauma.
And why Bilal is passionate about youth accessing arts education.
So sit back, grab a snack, and let's get started.
Oh my God, I just saw your cat's tail. I'm so sorry.
No, yeah,
That was delightful.
She does these things where as soon as she knows I'm on a meeting, she's kind of just like, oh, well, what about me? Like,
oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
She's full face right now, full ears.
Yes.
Oh my God, what's her name?
Her name's Ding Dong.
How are we going to get back on point, y'all?
So right now during this pandemic, you were raised in Mississauga, but right now you're in Toronto?
Yes, in Toronto. I have an apartment here in Parkdale.
Parkdale represent.
Yeah.
Really good food.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there a reason that you like Parkdale? Do you like it in Parkdale?
I do. It's so interesting. This was the, escape from Mississauga apartment. Like my brother and I had, a lot of experiences in the family home, and we just knew that we wanted to live together separate from everybody else. And so this was the apartment that we found 4 years ago and loved it. And now it's starting to feel like, for me, at least, time to move on a bit. And so I think I will be moving out of here shortly and out of Parkdale. But it's a special place. And I get it. I feel like I belong in Parkdale, and not about the artist stuff. Everyone says there's artists here, which is like true, of course. But I think, there's a woman who every time I'm walking down the street, she'll always kind of shout out to me that she loves what I'm wearing, or she loves especially the pants. She really responds to the pants I wear often. And that makes me feel like I'm a part of the neighborhood, like if I'm pulled out of it, she's not going to comment on my pants anymore. And I'm not going to say thank you to her. And anyways, whatever. So it feels like it feels deeper than just I'm an artist. I belong in Parkdale,
Honestly. And I think artists are a sign of gentrification. We could go down a long road there with Parkdale and the struggle that they're having to keep their cultural integrity. And yeah, that's happening in a lot of places in the city. But we're not going to go there because
I know
that's his own podcast episode. But beautiful. Yeah. And so your parents are from Pakistan?
That's right. Yeah, both of them.
Do you and your brother speak Urdu?
Well, so we grew up speaking Urdu only and learned English as soon as I started school here in Canada, though I was born in here as well. And but yes, so then through the process of kind of understanding that, my perception was that everyone spoke Urdu. That was that's totally what I knew. And then you go to school, and then suddenly it's like if you're not speaking English fast enough, you're not cool or you're weird. And I took those things very seriously and actively rejected the language for I think a better half of like 15-ish years, and then started to feel like that didn't feel right to totally abandon a language, which I still had such a deep connection to, because the way my mother and I communicate is she's full on Urdu and I'm full on English. And so I'd still go into the world and try to be a white person and then come home with like this intense kind of brownness that also made me feel good. Trying to be white never made me feel good. That made me feel good. And so the last couple of years, I'd say the last 6-7-ish years has really been about finding the language again. And so, and it's tough because there's so much shame around it for me. And so I'll practice with like friends of mine who speak it as well, really casually and not in any sort of formal kind of sense, but it's mostly actually through the art and the writing where I get to, revel in the deliciousness of that language and how much I loved it, love it, have always loved it, you know.
I was speaking about that. I wrote this down because I love it. It's like the note in the structure of your play that is like, it is intentional that the order written in this play is not translated. It must not be translated in any production of this work as well.
Yeah. And just to give some context for people, the play that Monica's talking about is called Acha Bacha, which Bilal just published with Playwrights Canada Press. So congratulations. That is such an achievement, Bilal.
Thanks.
So yeah, so that's like on one of the first pages, right, Monica, of the
Yes.
manuscript. So yeah, that's a strong choice, Bilal.
Yeah, I mean, it's all connected to even, you know, I started writing that piece when I was 18 years old, and from the first draft to publication was 7 years in total. And one of the things that I said from the get-go in developing the piece, okay, so there's a whole journey, right? You start developing it, you feel clear, you're excited, then you get lost, you get super lost, you get super manipulated, you get fucked over.
Oh no!
I can swear, right? We can swear.
Oh yeah,
yes,
for
yes.
sure.
So that stuff happens, and then by the time the contract for the publication came, I was so steadfast in reconnecting to that 18-year-old who started writing the work, who wasn't worried, who didn't give a fuck about how people were going to receive it, or what is too uncomfortable, or what is not how we do things. You know, that 18-year-old, I wasn't even really consuming theater live when I first started writing that play. So those whatever preconceived notions were not in my mind, and it was actually just coming from a really gut place. And that 18-year-old always wanted to center Urdu speaking queer and trans brown people in the work, and meaningfully center them, which meant that other queer and trans folks wouldn't be centered, which meant that you know, non-Urdu speaking Muslims would be decentered, which of course meant white people would be decentered. You know, it's such a specific
We love that
group of people, right? And I was just, my excitement was around, okay, what would happen? Like, clearly this side of the world has been spending a lot of time centering English speaking white folks in the work. Would anyone have a heart attack if I did things my way?
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, no one ever did in receiving this work. And I think it was a really special thing to have, to make it clear that there was going to be a lot of Urdu in the work, and that it would not be subtitled in the production, and it would not be translated in the book, because it goes back to this idea of, if you speak the language and you're flipping through the book, you get all these special gifts that other people don't, and we can have that, you know. And that's just that. It's not hard, and the publishers didn't fight it. They loved it. And we discussed other ways to center queer and trans brown folks in the book as well. The cover was designed by another trans South Asian artist, and then the book opens with community responses and not like lukewarm positive quotes from Now magazine, right? So
I literally, no book I've ever read, I think maybe once in my entire existence have I ever read the quotes at the beginning of the book. I'm like, who is this for me? Like,
right,
no.
right.
Talking about the language, when you're writing the piece, when you're writing Acha Bacha, how did you know what things couldn't be translated?
Well, I knew that nothing was going to be translated. And then the where I kind of caved into some of the whiteness and the English dominance was to really kind of artfully craft the mother's language in the work, which kind of flows from Urdu to English and back again. And the English words that do appear in her text are really intentional, are like kind of handcrafted and inserted in certain places. But if it were up to, well, yes, I think my core, because the way my mother and I talk is that she maybe says all of 3 English words in a like a 30-minute conversation with me, right? So if I were to really swing to trying to capture the full reality of that experience, then yes, the mother would have way less English. And so the compromise I kind of made was, okay, throw in more English words, but never translate anything, because my core belief is that if you in the book, if you're really taking in all the words, you will still understand the feeling of what's going on. And then in performance, you just get a brilliant actor to embody the Urdu language, which with all the feelings, and you'll feel her, you'll feel what she's saying or what she's trying to say. And so that's my core belief. And it's proven. We see it time and time again. You don't need to understand the language to know the feeling or to get a sense of the feeling. And so, yeah, I'm a strong believer in, especially in this work, that nothing was going to be translated ever.
And you have, this play is now being published as a book, but there have been a production of it as well. Yep. And I'm wondering, what was the response of the audience that came to see it?
Well, from what I understood, there were some of the most rewarding experiences I still think about, there was a preview that I attended where over 20 queer and trans South Asian people showed up together in a historically white, space like Pas Marai. And that I remember being like, oh my God, there's something special here. Over 20 gathered together. And fuck, we're brown. We can't even get our shit together. We can't show up on time for anything.
On time, y'all.
And these people showed up and claimed their seats and sat down and didn't leave. And so there was that. And then there was the experience of folks coming back more than once, over the course of the run. Somebody told me that they felt their entire life was kind of captured through the play. A lot of people spoke about the mother and her resonance across cultures as well. Yes. And then I was tapped out of the negative stuff. I know for sure there was that. I didn't read any of the reviews, but I'm pretty certain that it was not like, oh my God, this is the best play.
No, that's not even my question. I think you're answering my question.
Right. Yeah. But to say fully, I know that there definitely was a spectrum of responses that swung from kind of positive to negative, but specifically the conversations I was connected to were South Asian folks who were kind of surprised that a work like this could exist in our city and could make space for them in the way that the show did, I think.
Something that really grabbed my attention was there's a scene where I'm sorry if I mispronounced, Salim and Saya are in bed and they're talking about fasting and God, and then they go to a sexual a scenario, queerness, sex, and religion together. That for me was it was beautiful that it was just a simple conversation, but also, and then you have so many layers in this. I saw it, but reading it again, I was like, oh my God, that was so beautiful. How do you connect those three things together when a lot of people don't see them, but in some cultures, and I can talk for my culture, they're so married to each other.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about, this might maybe already my third time mentioning my mom in this very.
You'd be surprised how much moms come up on this podcast.
I know. Sure, right?
Just join us.
Okay, great. Yeah. I embrace it. One thing she told me from a very young age, and it wasn't in this, super strict, conservative Muslim way. It was just super. Just what it was. She was like, bitch, you're always going to be Muslim. She's just like, you're here in this country. God knows what the fuck is going to happen, but fundamentally, foundationally, you are Muslim. Just believe it. Don't fight it. And it, I had heard that from quite a young age. It was something that she repeated a lot. I think for her, there was an underlying fear of what this part of the world can do to children whose family comes from different parts of the world. But I just believed it to be what it was. And then the identities started to layer on top of each other. Right. So I as I was understanding and accepting my queerness, I already knew that that was going to sit on top of my Muslimness. And then I was sexually assaulted. And I was like, okay, that's going to now sit on top of the queerness, which sits on top of the Muslimness. Then I started to embrace my trans identity and the gender fluidity. And so that sits on top of the other thing, which is, you know, and so for me, it wasn't ever this experience, which often I'm also asked about, is how hard was it to reconcile your faith with your queerness and your transness? I'm like, it wasn't hard. I just, the bricks just sat on top of each other, and it's just how it's always been for me. It's how I like to live my life and how I like to see myself as fully Muslim as I want to be, as fully trans as I want to be. And so I think, you know, that sequence that you're talking about, it flows from a place of like, this is a non conversation. And Salim especially too. You don't get to access that character being like, oh, I have to go.
No,
pray,
I love that.
But I want to wear my bangles. It's like that bitch is gonna do whatever the fuck they want, you know. And
it's gorgeous.
Yeah. I just thought it was also more exciting. Those are the kind of characters I want to meet and grapple with, and then yell at my partner over dinner after, being like, "This is how they got there. This is their belief system," and then being like, "No, it's this." You know, that's juice here. I'm just so used to or bored now by, I don't know, certain narratives that I think are actually fed to us by the controllers of entertainment and art, who are like, you must stay in these boxes and explore these traumas. And I think we're bored, you know?
Thank you for entertaining us, Bilal. Thank you for bringing us the food we need, the nourishment we want. And I also, you said, like, you know, art, the vision of art or good art or powerful art in this time. Yeah, often trauma porn, it comes up a lot. But also, I think the narrative that people are given about queerness and religion is often that they just can't be. You can't be a holy person and be queer. That can't be. Yeah. And it's super liberating to give yourself permission to be exactly who you are, and also to be religious, like point blank, to be spiritual. It's very liberating to allow yourself to be that. One of the characters in your play, again, I'm going to say their name with love, Maulana, says, prayer is the key to freedom. And I was like, whoa. And I know that character is a little bit manipulative, there's lots of questions with their intention saying that, but just unabashed faith is a very powerful feeling.
Yeah, and also I think that's what the importance of having the 5 Muslim bodies and the 5 Muslim characters in the work was too, that we fall on a spectrum of how much, you know, Zaya in that same scene that you're talking about says, I think it's a trap. To pray with you is a trap, you know? And so the perspectives, holding space for all the perspectives was super important in the work too, because it was interesting to me to start to really gray our collective understanding of who Muslims are and what they can be. They're not only and always the terrorists, but they're not also only and always the hijabi activist who says everything right. You know, there's so much space for flaw and you know, mixed upness in it, and that and so you have Maulana there who believes in his faith, I think, but that I think that what he chooses to do with it is, in my opinion, incredibly inappropriate and uncomfortable and despicable. And then you've got Salim too, who also has a relationship to faith, does what they want to do with it, but that could also, you know, there's another part in the book where Salim is like, I'd like you to pray with me, to their lover Zaya, who I think has the most kind of contentious relationship with faith and Islam, and so there's shades of oppression and liberation in all of their kind of relationships to faith, I think.
I like also talking about this, about like faith and but a lot of the stuff is like, what does it mean to be good? It's like, Acha Bacha means good boy.
I think it actually, I've been misquoting see, this is me and my relationship too.
You're allowed to be messy.
Yes, exactly. Here I am. I think the actual translation is good child.
Good child.
Acha Bacha is good child. Yeah.
But what does it mean to be good? I don't know. I kept on thinking that it's like this idea, as someone who also grew up religious, is like you always need to aim to be a good person, be good.
Yeah.
But it's like good in the eyes of who or what?
It's super complicated. I mean, are you curious about my take on it, or maybe how I feel about Zaya, the main character, and his relationship to goodness?
I feel like this play is trying to answer that question. It's just such a hard question. But yes, Bilal, both.
It was really about accepting all the things that we are and all the things that have happened to us. And if we can do that and open ourselves up to receiving love, to genuinely receiving love, we might start to feel good as a humanity or as a collective body. It was one of the biggest things in my journey too. And of course it's a process. There are good days and bad days. Even on your best days, there's a little bit of bad underneath it, but I think it was, I stumbled upon this belief that I still hold on to is if I want to feel good, I need to accept everything that I am and to hold it all, whether even the parts that are hard or that I don't like, or some days I don't want to feel, those things just do exist. And yeah, the second thing that I said was, for so long, I wasn't open to the idea of actually being loved, actually receiving love. I had kind of written that off and was not something that I was foreseeing or imagining for myself. And I think that really does, in some ways mirror Zaya's journey and through the piece as well. And I think with Zaya, his memories and the trauma is the thing that really stops him from seeing himself as a good person. And because there's such a taboo and a weight around it, he hasn't given himself the space to really talk about what happened and how he felt about it. And I think that the thing that clouds everything, right? Like he knows that he's queer. He knows that he's in a relationship with this genderqueer person, and his relationship to his mom also matters to him. But the thing that I think he's convinced himself is, it's all over because I think that I was sexually assaulted. And if my mom knows that, it's done. It's like the option, if I could choose to be good, is forever written out of her books.
That's so real, Bilal. It's so real.
Yeah.
I just, and I think that, and I wonder what would happen to our world if there was real space and time to process these things that shake our lives up forever. And I wonder there probably wouldn't be a play if Zaya had worked through his stuff, and I think that it's why that thing is so important. And the moment, it's weird talking about my work, but there's parts that really excite me. There's that it's a really tiny moment, but it's towards the end where Zaya asks his mom, "Do you think I'm a good person?" And that was in so many ways the fire that ignited the whole play for me, because I had, at the time when I was 18, had really been like, oh my God, I'm done. Like my mom will never think I'm a good person, because I was 18 was the year after I was sexually assaulted. And I was like, okay, that's it. Like I'm out of the running, and then I was just obsessed. Like, what would happen if I could actually ask her that question? And what might she say? And how might I feel? And what would be not even just the moment after, but the next 5 minutes after that question is asked? And yeah, I think it really does matter to Zaya. Like goodness is connected to his mother and his mother's perception of him.
And Monica and I were talking a little before this, and Monica was so enamored with the end.
I was just happy that it's not like there's not a resolution. It's like you didn't fix the problem. The problem is going to continue to show through the entire life of your character. And to know that that's the end, it's not like an actual like, and then he conquered his fears. I was like, that's so real for many people.
Totally. He conquered his fears and he started a successful small business.
Uh-huh.
Now, like, it's like
no, it's just him in silence thinking about it, which most people just go through. It's just like,
right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things that I artistically I crave all the time is to have an experience where I think about the people I met after I met them, to think about the characters I encountered. And this thing about nicely tying things up is I stop thinking about them. It's like if their things wrap up in the play, I'm gonna go to dinner after and be like, what did I just see? What? Like, you know, but the things that linger, the things that feel like the maybe the knots are just here. Oh, sorry, I'm using my hands in an audio thing.
Just are not touching, but almost touching.
Yes. That makes me hungry. That makes me want to keep talking and thinking and discussing and arguing about what happens next to these people. And it was also really important that, you know, that Zaya doesn't come back to the hospital to Ma and be like, you have to love me or whatever. Like, you know, or it just, my motivation behind that was to understand, to know deeply that trauma, the way that trauma impacts our lives, in some ways can never be put into a nice, neat little box. And that's not also necessarily the end of the world or a tragedy. It's to honor what it means to live with trauma. I think as somebody who does, it's a disservice to what it means to navigate and move through trauma. If I were to check a box and wrap everything up, I'm more interested in the lingering, the unfinished thought, the okay, I might do this or I might do that or I might say this or I might not say that. But I think some people, I don't know. It's also not depressing. It's like. I think Zaya, I don't know what Zaya is going to do, you know, the next page after the play ends, but to be able to even say something like, something happened to me. Like, I don't think Zaya had said that before. So there's some hope that lives in it too. And I don't think anyone's going to kill themselves, you know, like it's these, again, this trauma porny, this play in some ways, I'm sure, you know, I'm not sure what everyone else thinks about it, but, you know, I can totally see how this play lives quite adjacently to trauma porn. But to me, the things that make it different or make it not that is that Zaya's agency as a human being was always really important to me. I think there's that sequence in the book, and I don't know how much to give away or not.
We should all just read it, like right. Point blank. But anyway, yeah.
Sure. But he's doing his best to regain control in his life, and I don't think that means that he's going to start up a business for survivors at the end of the play. But he is going to think about how he wants to feel good and in the world and what that takes and what that means.
There's this phrase in herbalism that goes around a lot about plants, and it says, what can kill can cure. So that same plant has so many properties within it, and it's all about just how you want to have a relationship with those different properties.
I love that.
I have a more technical question now that we talked a lot about feelings. My question is how do you approach writing the technical and like design parts on a script to a book? How do you adapt that?
Well, so one thing, again, that the 18-year-old was really clear about was, don't do other people's jobs. Don't do the set designer's job. Don't do the lighting designer's job. Don't do the sound designer's job. You could suggest things. You can kind of moodily like set an environment or scene through your words. But I was never, I had read so many plays over the course of the development of this that were like, a red chair sits on stage left with a lamp. Oh my God, that is so limiting. And why would a playwright ever want to do that to another person who's invited into the process to dream about what the thing can look like and feel like? And so one might read through the book and notice that the stage directions never kind of tell you what the surrounding environment looks like. I think I was there were some parts that I was really interested in suggesting what the feeling needs to be of the moment. But so in some ways, to answer your question, it wasn't, translating it into the published text was not difficult at all, because the stage directions were always quite sparse and were always just about mood rather than direction. And then I think also because the production happened, which I think I can go on the record and say I really didn't love how the production was staged specifically. And so any kind of things that happened there didn't necessarily translate into the book, because I was like, that's not really how I envisioned it being staged. But I love I don't know, Monica, you said you saw it, these kind of hideous and large gold curtains. Yes. I was like, yes, like that's great. And that's Joanna Yu's mind, right? But what if this play gets picked up and someone wants to stage it in Vancouver? And because there's nothing like large gold curtains take up all the space in this work, another designer will I don't know, do something else with it. And it just feels like more playful and more space for actual meaningful collaboration.
It's reminding me of we did some research, internet sleuthing on you, trying to be not as creepy as possible, but it is a little bit creepy. And we looked up some other interviews that you've done, and you did one with Omni. And the brief English parts that we were able to understand, there's one where you say, they ask you like why you started playwriting, and your quote was,
I'm way more interested in having two characters interacting with each other rather than a novel or a poem.
Thank you, Monica. So what you just said really resonates with that, because it's you're passionate about the story, the conversation, rather than, it's not your job to do the other things. That's why you're doing theater.
Yes.
I was thinking that because it's such a good advice to tell to youth.
To the youth. And yes. Okay, so Bilal, you work a lot with youth, eh? Like outside of your theater practice, it seems to be something you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll let you speak to it, but just for listeners who don't know Bilal's work or all the magical things Bilal does, which we barely know, but some of them include working with the Rivers of Hope project and being a facilitator with the playwrights unit at the Paprika Festival, which supports like young artists, technically the youth bracket of Ontario, so like teens, early 20s, and Story Planet, which is an amazing organization. Maybe you can talk about, or you can talk about any of these, but my question for you is, what have you learned from working with youth, and why is this demographic a powerful one to work with for you?
Yeah, okay, well, yes, oh my God, okay, so for me, I feel so lucky to be doing the kind of work I get to do as a human being at the age that I'm at, and for like a real number of years, kind of young child into young adult. I spent a lot of time internalizing the messages I think I was getting from the world at large and from my parents, and then me really believing that there are so many things that I can't do or that I shouldn't do because no one would care anyways. And so I know how that affected me as a child. It made me really terribly shy, like really not interested in sharing ideas ever, because I just thought that they weren't worth anything. And then that also made me kind of care less about the world and my role in it. And it's weird and kind of interesting, but also really just ties into a lot of what we've been talking about. It was actually after I was sexually assaulted, I was like, hold the phone. Like, if this is happening to many people kind of all the time, all over the world, I cannot continue as this slightly apathetic, deeply scared person. I need to start doing things and saying things that I've been thinking about for a while. And so the work that I do is really, especially with youth, is kind of always grounded in celebrating people where they're at and all the things that they're at, all the things that they're bringing to a process. Story Planet specifically, we work in neighborhoods in Toronto where the funding just really doesn't reach them for, I think, super racist and problematic reasons, and often also working with newcomers and children who I'm like, I lead some of the creative writing workshops, and I'm like, I know you're looking at me thinking like, oh, that person has the same skin color I do. Maybe I can do what they're doing if I like it, you know? And anyways, the goal of that is to really bring, essentially we walk them through writing, these young children, them writing their own novels or short stories. And it's such a rewarding process working with them. With Rivers of Hope, it's about anti-Islamophobia, which was one of the things that really messed me up. I was super young when 9/11 happened. And then that point onwards just deeply felt super ashamed of my existence. And so to not only just definitely speak to the Muslim students that we work with in classrooms and community centers around validating their existence as people who are all that they are, but then also speaking to the non-Muslim students and seriously activating them in figuring out ways that they can combat Islamophobia or intervene when and Islamophobia looks like so many things, the microaggressionness of it to the more extreme. And so that work really is tied to also my social justice-y kind of excitement, but is really again about letting people be all that they are. And then Paprika, of course. Paprika's been so good to me. Acha Bacha was in development through their playwright residency in 2014, and they were a big part of why I kept kind of going with the play and with theater, because they just really made a space for me to risk and try things. And so that with Paprika specifically, and now being able to work with their playwrights unit, it just really feels like a giving back that I've kind of always wanted to do, because they gave me so much. But yes, to work with youth means to if I can enter their life and maybe just be myself around them, they might feel the permission to be their selves more or deeper in the world. They might see, I never saw a facilitator like myself come into a classroom and do anything creative, and that might it gives them the permission to dream really big if they want to. That excites me. And I think the thing that I take from the youth, the thing that I learn always is there's no hierarchy in the exchange of giving. Okay, this is not going to totally make sense. There's no hierarchy in giving each other all of yourself. I have found that when I'm working with young people, though it's sometimes hard, you kind of get a little self-conscious, especially I have found, in the way I exist in the world, how I look, what the clothes I choose to wear and stuff. But I have found time and time again, it is simply an act of seeing each other where we're at and connecting and talking. And then all this magic comes from it. And so if young people can see me for the most part, in all that I am, that really like reinforces this idea that everybody else should be able to too. And I'm not taking any more bullshit from like a 40-year-old cis white person being like, oh, it's hard for me to accept you. Like, okay, if that's the case, we're not working together. You could figure that out on your own, and then maybe we can talk. But yeah, I think there's just something really energizing. They're like, I just want to be creative, or I just want to learn something, and it doesn't, the way they receive information is just so juicy. It's like, what happened to us as adults where we lose this serious like joy for new information and hunger, curiosity and openness, just a spirit of play and experimentation, you know?
Your love for it just pours out of you. It's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So, Bilal, we ask the same questions to every guest. The title of this podcast is called MERENDIANDO, which is a Spanish North Mexican word we're discovering, which has to do with like getting together, having a snack, and chatting and connecting. That's what we're kind of doing here. Non-shelter in place times, we would have been in the same space and there would have been food. And that would have been starting this whole thing. So we're wondering if you have a merendiando or a merienda or a snack to share with us, but it doesn't necessarily need to be food. It could be like, do you have a merienda for the brain? Like, what's your favorite snack right now? Favorite song? Something that's like a little snack for people to chew on.
Wow. Oh, that's a great question. Okay. Seriously, like it's WAP for me.
Oh my God, same. Below.
It's a ritual now. I wake up in the morning, I watch the video like 5 times on repeat, and then I go about my day, and then when I'm just bored, I'll watch it. When I'm sad, I'll watch it. It's the gifts that it was intending to put out into the world. I know for sure I'm really receiving over and over again. So
Yes, the matriarchy. It's here.
Yeah.
It's always been here. Yes. Love that so much. Please, everyone, listen to WAP right now, if you want, you know?
In our last questions, we are interviewing other artists that are not in Canada. We're interviewing different international artists. And if there's a question that you want to ask our next artist, it can be about anything. It can be about everything. Just a question you want to put out there in the world, and we'll give it to somebody to answer to.
Okay, I don't know. This is the first thing that popped into my head. Is that cool?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. What is the part of your practice that scares you the least?
I love that question.
Can't wait to ask that.
I know.
All right. So the next Merendiando episode after this, we will ask that question to the guest. So feel free to listen to the response.
Tune in. Yes. Okay. Love it. Thank you.
And thank you so much for chatting with us, with sharing this Zoom merienda conversation.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you. It's like, yes, everyone's on Zoom now, but this feels really nice, and I super appreciate talking to you both, and thanks for making the space for me and the play.
It's easy. It's delightful, in fact.
Awesome.
We are speaking to you from the shores of this beautiful Zaga Igan, known to some as Lake Ontario, in Toronto, or Dagarondo. This is the ancestral territory of the Haudenosaunee, or Longhouse Confederacy, the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum and Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase.
At Aluna, we remember that people can begin to heal when they are hurt. We are committed to artful participation in disagreements. We are committed to unsettling ourselves towards connection, respect, and justice for all people who now live in this city, which has been a meeting place since time immemorial. Radio Aluna Theatre is produced by Aluna Theatre, with support from the Toronto Arts Council, the Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Department of Canadian Heritage, and the Metcalf Foundation. Aluna Theatre is Beatriz Pisano and Trevor Shellness, with Sue Ballant. Radio Aluna Theater is produced by Mónica Garrido and Camila Diaz Varela. For more about Aluna Theater, visit us at alunatheater.ca, follow at Aluna Theater on Twitter or Instagram, or like us on Facebook.
Miigwech and Nyawangoa.